Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. In this video we are going to see about de-dollarization and how it benefits India and other countries. Let's get into video.
India is willing to take concrete steps towards de-dollarization of its international trade.
For nearly 80 years since the end of the Second World War, the US dollar has effectively been the currency of the world.
China is now trying to replace the US dollar with their currency in global trade.
What is de-dollarization? De-dollarization refers to reducing the dollar's dominance of global markets. It is a process of substituting US dollar as the currency used for trading oil and/or other commodities, buying US dollars for the forex reserves, bilateral trade agreements. History of dollar dominance. The US dollar has been the world's dominant currency for many years now. This means that many countries around the world use US dollars for things like international trade, investing, and as a reserve currency held by central banks. The US dollar's dominance can be traced back to the end of World War II, when the United States emerged as the world's dominant economic power. At that time, the US dollar was linked to gold, which helped to give it a sense of stability and reliability. Other countries began to use the US dollar as a reserve currency, meaning they held large amounts of US dollars to use for international trade and to stabilize their own currencies. Over time, the US dollar became even more dominant as the world's leading economies continued to use it as their currency of choice for trade and investment. Today, many countries continue to hold large reserves of US dollars, and the US dollar is often used as the currency for international loans and bond issuances. While there are many benefits to the US dollar's dominance, there are also some downsides. If the US economy experiences a downturn, it can have ripple effects throughout the world. Additionally, some countries have expressed concerns that the US has too much control over the global financial system, which could potentially lead to unfair advantages for the US. Recent news about de-dollarization. BRICS countries are planning to develop their own currency for trading to reduce the dependency of dollar. Brazil and China started to trade in national currency. India is in talks with 18 countries to do trade settlement in national currency. ASEAN countries are finding alternative to dollar for the trade settlements. Saudi and China ready to trade in national currency for energy import and exports. Why de-dollarization is happening so rapidly? There are several reasons why de-dollarization is happening rapidly. Geopolitical tensions. The US dollar has traditionally been viewed as a dominant global currency due to the economic and political power of the United States. However, geopolitical tensions, such as trade wars, sanctions, and political conflicts, have led countries to seek alternatives to the US dollar to reduce their dependency on the US and avoid potential risks. Economic diversification. Many countries are seeking to diversify their currency reserves to reduce risks associated with currency fluctuations and economic instability. The rise of emerging economies, such as China, has led to an increasing demand for alternative currencies, such as the Chinese yuan, as a means of conducting international trade and investment. As these countries gain economic influence, they are seeking to reduce their reliance on the US dollar and promote the use of their own currencies in global transactions. Technological advancements. Advancements in technology, such as blockchain and digital currencies, have enabled countries to explore alternative currencies and payment methods outside of the traditional banking system. What are the efforts for de-dollarization? Leading geopolitical adversaries of the US. Russia and China have already started this process of de-dollarization. Efforts are underway for the possible introduction of a new Russia-China payment system. The ongoing war in Ukraine and the subsequent economic sanctions will trigger central banks to go back to their drawing boards to reassess their dependency on the dollar. Russia had started its three-pronged efforts towards de-dollarization in 2014 when sanctions were imposed on it for the annexation of Crimea. Russia reduced its share of dollar-denominated assets to about 16% in 2021. It also reduced its share of trade conducted in USD by prioritizing national currencies in bilateral trade. China aims to use trading platforms and its digital currency to promote de-dollarization. It has established RMB trading centers in Hong Kong, Singapore and Europe. In 2021, the People's Bank of China submitted a Global Sovereign Digital Currency Governance proposal at the Bank for International Settlements to influence global financial rules via its digital currency, the yuan. What are the steps taken by governments of different countries? Bilateral currency swaps. Bilateral currency swaps among ASEAN countries, China, Japan, South Korea are $380 billion United States dollars and rising. Similarly, the South African rand is used by several African countries. The BRICS's new development bank encourages trade and investment in national currencies by disbursing up to 50% of its loans in national currencies since 2015. China developed the renminbi in 2015 and offers clearing and settlement services for participants in cross-border yuan payments and trade. Russian banks have started using the China-based cross-border interbank payment system for international payments, as they are debarred from the SWIFT international system. India's efforts. In July 2022, the Reserve Bank of India (RBI) unveiled a rupee settlement system for international trade by allowing special Vostro accounts in designated Indian banks, a step towards internationalizing the rupee. How de-dollarization helps India and other countries. This can have several benefits for countries like India and others that are currently heavily dependent on the US dollar. Firstly, de-dollarization can help these countries reduce their exposure to the risks associated with fluctuations in the US dollar exchange rate. A sudden depreciation in the value of the US dollar can cause significant economic turmoil in countries that are heavily dependent on it. By diversifying their currency reserves and increasing the use of other currencies in international transactions, these countries can reduce their vulnerability to such risks. Secondly, de-dollarization can help reduce the dominance of the US in the global financial system. The US dollar has been the dominant currency for international transactions for decades, giving the US significant influence over global economic affairs. De-dollarization can help shift this balance of power, giving countries like India more autonomy in their economic policies. Thirdly, de-dollarization can help promote trade and economic relations between countries that are not part of the US-dominated global financial system. For example, India has been exploring the use of alternative payment mechanisms, such as the rupee-rial mechanism with Iran, to bypass US sanctions and continue trading with countries that are under US sanctions. Finally, de-dollarization can also help reduce the transaction costs associated with international trade. The use of the US dollar as the primary currency for international transactions often results in additional transaction costs for countries that are not part of the US-dominated financial system. By promoting the use of other currencies, such as the euro or yuan, these transaction costs can be reduced, benefiting countries like India. There are several challenges associated with de-dollarization. Economic and financial stability. De-dollarization can pose risks to economic and financial stability, as it involves changing established currency systems and potentially disrupting established trade and investment patterns. It can also result in currency fluctuations, which may impact inflation, interest rates, and the overall economic performance of a country. Limited alternatives. While countries may seek to diversify away from the US dollar, there may be limited viable alternatives available. Other major currencies, such as the euro, yen, or yuan, may also have their own challenges and risks, and may not be as widely accepted as stable as the US dollar in global transactions. This can limit the options for countries looking to de-dollarize. Trade and investment barriers. De-dollarization may face challenges related to trade and investment barriers. Financial infrastructure and technology. De-dollarization may require significant investments in financial infrastructure and technology to support transactions in alternative currencies. Geopolitical and diplomatic tensions. De-dollarization can also be influenced by geopolitical and diplomatic tensions, as it may involve countries reducing their reliance on the US dollar, which could impact diplomatic relations with the US and other countries. This can result in diplomatic and political challenges, including potential trade disputes, sanctions, or other forms of economic retaliation. Market liquidity and depth. The liquidity and depth of markets for alternative currencies may also pose challenges in the de-dollarization process. The US dollar is currently the most widely traded and liquid currency in global markets, and alternative currencies may not have the same level of liquidity and depth. This can impact the efficiency and effectiveness of de-dollarization efforts. In conclusion, de-dollarization presents several challenges, including economic and financial stability risks, limited alternatives, trade and investment barriers, financial infrastructure and technology challenges, geopolitical and diplomatic tensions, and market liquidity and depth issues. Overcoming these challenges requires careful planning, coordination, and cooperation among countries and stakeholders involved in the de-dollarization process. So, while de-dollarization may be happening rapidly, it is not without its challenges, and countries need to carefully consider and address these challenges in their de-dollarization efforts. That's the end of the video. I hope you learned something new. Share to your friends if it is useful. Please subscribe and press the bell icon.